everybody, and welcome to the True Blood Performing Arts Center tonight. We are glad to see so many of you. This is, as many of you know, our 20th season. We have a couple of opportunities for people to make donations to the TPAC. Most importantly, a matching fund, a $99,000 matching fund, so you can go online to tpacwashingtonisland.com and make a donation. You can also there make a donation for the radio station, which is this close to getting a tower put on land so we can all dial it up on the radio instead of screaming. Woo-hoo. So, but tonight we are very happy to have the Scandinavian dancers here presenting their recent trip. And I'm going to turn it over to Kari Gordon, who is the director of the Scandinavian dancers.
So, on behalf of the Norway trip participants, we would just like to welcome you to this presentation about our trip to Norway. And first and foremost, I would like to, on all our behalves, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all the support that the island has shown to our dancers to help us on our way. We could not have gone on this trip without this island. That's not true. Without the overarching sponsorship of Island Angels, we would not have had a nonprofit that allowed us to apply for the grant that we received from the American Scandinavian Foundation, which was $30,000 and went a great way to help us achieving our goal. Without the help and support of all of you, attending our Fest Coffee in December, hiring our dancers who were willing to work, arriving with donations out of the blue, and all of your supportive notes, letters of encouragement, and everything that you did to help our dancers get there individually, anonymous donations, donations that we knew about. We profoundly thank you. Our gratitude is immense, and it is a testament to this island and its belief in the island's young people that you've done this. I'm overwhelmed, and I know our dancers are extremely grateful, and we hope that by watching this tonight, you'll be able to have a small taste of what we were able to experience. And for me, it was wonderful after all these years of teaching the students and telling them, gosh, I wish I could take you to Norway so you could see it for yourself. To finally be able to do that and have them finally be able to see what it's all about. What the similarities are, the differences, how to carry the heritage through, what heritage, and to make decisions, and what sorts of traditions do you want to keep, what heritage is needed to keep. You'll hear it through the students' own words. This is not something that the adults put together. Sally collated everything. She handled all of that. But these are the words of the dancers themselves that you're about to hear. I hope you enjoy it.
Good evening. I'm just going to give a little bit of history about the Scandinavian Fest here up on Washington Island, and we'll show some slides. Oh, there I am. We can start with the first slide right away. And to many of us, the first weekend in August has come to mean one big event, the Scandinavian Fest. And this year is rather special, as we all know, as that it's the 76th year. Since 1948, there's been a festival each consecutive year. But the origins of the fest actually begin several years before 1948. The very first festival was held at the old Washington Island School grounds, which is now the Art Nature Center. And Gladys Boschka had written a short history of the Scandinavian Festival. I found that in the archives, and she writes that Anne Whitney was one of the original conceivers of the Scandinavian Festival idea. Gladys and Anne and several other islanders of Scandinavian heritage were enthusiastic supporters. Mary Richter taught folk dances that first year, and there were many solo and group dances, as well as groups of Scandinavian singers. And even old-timers such as Jens Jacobsen and others of the 1940s were honored guests. And of course, Scandinavian delicacies were sold at an outdoor booth. Now that was before World War I. That was before World War II. During the war years, there were no Scandinavian festivals. We could hold there, please. There, yeah, thank you. Let's see. But after the war, festivities resumed in 1948 with a combined smorgasbord and a dance program at the Lutheran Church. After the meal was served in the church basement, the dance program and the folk dancing took place on the church tennis court out back. Girls who had served as waitresses and many young mothers who had worked in the kitchen joined with the younger boys and girls in the dances and the singing. And during the 1950s, the amount of performers soon outgrew the Trinity Church tennis court setting. Next slide, please. The old community center, which was located down next to the Red Barn, became the new festival location. An outdoor stage was built behind the Red Barn for the dance program, which was Saturday night, but the smorgasbord supper was still served at the Lutheran Church basement on Friday nights. Using recipes from the homeland, they served delectable delights such as kringle, able skeevers, roly poles, baked whitefish, lefse, eulakaga bread, etc. I just had dinner, but I'm hungry. Next slide, please. Oh, there's behind the Red Barn there, too. There's some of the ladies of the smorgasbord. That's, I believe, Minnie Richter, Sylvia Jessen, and Thelma Lorhall. The festivities for the Scandinavian Festival eventually relocated to our current community center and the Jacqueline Foss stage, with the smorgasbord continuing on until about 1995. Next slide. That's Esther Krause, Jeannie Ellefson, Shirley Atkins, Elsa B. Hansen, and Barbara Hansen, serving up the double-decker. You can almost see it. It's a two-layer. I'm sorry, it's a little bit blurry, but there's a lower level and an upper level of delights. And now I'd like to talk about a couple of attendance numbers for some festivals. In 1960, there was 90 dancers. In 1963, there was 535 people served at the Trinity Smorgasbord. In 1973, 670 were served at the Smorgasbord. In 1975, 659 tickets were sold to the festival. In 1984, there was 510 people served. 1990, 400 served at the Smorgasbord. In 2007, 134 dance performers. And in 2013, the estimate was 400 in attendance. So as we can see by those numbers, we can go to the next slide. That's Cynthia Bowen, Pauline O'Connell, and Margaret Jacobson. As we can see by those numbers I mentioned, the Scandinavian Fest has always been well attended, and as usual, a good time is always had by all. Thank you.
As the Norwegians say, hi hi! My name is Bida. My name is Maya. Tonight we will share about our heritage voyage to Norway. However, the story does not only belong to the 30 people who have traveled this summer. This story belongs to all of us, connecting us to those who have come before us and to those who will continue the legacy. It belongs to each of you and to all the members of our island community. Tonight we will share our program in 4 parts. Section 1, our adventures. Section 2, our impressions. Section 3, our heritage. And Section 4, our contributions. We began from Chicago O'Hare Airport on June 28th. We flew to Copenhagen, then to Oslo, where we boarded a bus for the 3-hour drive. After 26 hours of travel, longer for those of us who traveled to get to O'Hare, we arrived in the town of Fagernes in the Valdres region of Norway, northwest of Oslo. You can imagine it like landing at O'Hare and boarding a bus to the town of Sister Bay in Norway. We stayed at the Hotel Scandic Valdres. Each morning we could eat from the breakfast buffet in the dining hall, or sit out on the patio. Each day we could pack our lunches called matpakka to take with us for our outing. We visited a wide variety of cultural heritage events to learn about the dance, music, history, and lifestyle of the Valdres region of Norway. We ate an amazing variety of food, including reindeer pizza and sea trout. We attended a dance competition called the Landskapsleken Festival. On the first of the 5-day event, people and folk dance groups from all across Norway come to participate each year. And we even climbed a mountain. Our trip was filled with many adventures that we wish to share with you. Next up is Aidan Purington.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight I'm sharing with you a collection of poems I wrote about every day of the trip. At the conclusion of each day, I come back to my room and write a short poem, kind of reflecting on what the trip's values were for that day and things we did. So, beginning on day 1, after a long day of planes and little sleep, weary travelers are greeted by sights of Norwegian landscapes and sheep. As Fagernes approaches our waiting eyes, we spot blue water where white boats arise. Their fiberglass hulls sit glistening and gleaming, waiting patiently for their captains so they can go out steaming. Farms and cottages interject fields of green. For when one comes to Norway, they truly understand what beauty means. The next morning, island travelers awake to find a breakfast delicious and extravagant in every kind. With full bellies and their sights set on learning, they head to a folk museum to explore Valdres history, a series of events as the times return. After a dinner of delicious trout, it is time once again to head back out. Norwegians' fluid dancing envelops the barn walls. A spirit of community fills us all up tall. Together, we perform by the night sun, well lit. Dancing on a mountain in Norway. Yes, we did it. On day 3, our day begins with a bus ride to Frikar Studio to learn from skilled dance instructors and work on some cardio. Hauling dance was the way of the peacock. And after our dancing, we cooled off by jumping into the fjord off the dock. A night hike on Rundemelon, guided by a faithful wiener dog, brought us all great views over the light mountain fog. With tired legs and broadened minds, islanders headed to bed, free from all lines. Farm tours are on the agenda for day 4, with dreams of sheep dancing in our heads the night before. After touring the sustainable garden, we peruse the jewelry made of silver and handcrafted pottery, baked and hardened. After tasting heart-shaped waffles, just as you tasted on your way in, and mountain hospitality, We head to the Folk Museum to observe musicians and a long blonde dancer express their cultural mentality. On day 5, this day begins with a scenic bus trip to the town of Gold, where culture drips. Landskapleiken draws crowds of Norwegians for miles around to celebrate folk dance and music aloud. Fast-paced dances and whining fiddles, with participants ranging from oldest of the old to the littlest of the little. A hot day in Hallingdal left us feeling a little warm, so we all end the day with a swim in the fjord, with water covering our bodies in a swarm. The dawn of a new day means a new city, even though Fagernes was so naturally pretty. The bustle of Oslo awaits us after a 3-hour excursion on the bus. Shopping and souvenirs are our main intention, and along the way, even some ferry boat sightings catch our attention. The day of our departure begins with the train. Gliding through the outskirts of Oslo, through bits of rain. We bid farewell to the kind people and cool places, the helping hands, teaching mouths, and smiling faces. Norway, you have taught us so much, your dancing, traditions, food, and such. We leave your borders for new adventures we all seek. Please, could we just stay one more week? Next, you'll see a video that Maggie Schmidt prepared about the trip, so you can watch that.
go to the next slide. So, the selection of Valdres as a destination was driven primarily by the fact that Valdres is a place where the cultural heritage of Norway is very, very, very rich and varied. And their music, their dance, their buna, their folk dress traditions, their traditional arts, including building, their cooking, all of the traditional ways are being kept alive in Valdres. It also happens to be the place where my family is from, which made it handy because I had connections that were able to help us set parts of the trip up. One of those people is no longer with us. In 1979, the very, very first time I went to Norway, a Norwegian professor put me in touch with my family after our family had lost touch. And there was a man named Erik Hovey who said to me, he knew I was coming to, my professor knew I was going to Norway to study folk music and dance during our January term, and said, I think this man is related to you. And he was. And we wrote to them and they said, come to us for a week. Now, I don't know that I would necessarily do that today with a daughter, send somebody off to someone for a week when you don't have a clue who they are, but it was, it was the 70s and they were family, right? So we went. And that was the start of my connection with Valdres, or reconnection, I should say, because I'd heard stories about it all my life. Erik Hovey was particularly proud of one thing in particular. Well, he was proud of all of Valdres, but one thing in particular he was proud of was the building you see right in front of you. That building stood on the Hovey farm. It dates to the year 1350. It is the original building. It is not rebuilt. It is the real deal. And it is the oldest building in Norway that is not a church. And it was used for storage, primarily dry storage. And a number of years ago, I couldn't tell you exactly when, it's probably on the museum site, it was donated to the Valdres Folk Museum. And when I was in Norway in 1979, Erik said, you have to see this. This is a really important building. It's part of your history. It's part of your heritage. So of course, when we were all at the Norwegian Folk Museum, that happened to be our first stop on the Folk Museum. And I had to tell the dancers about that connection. And also it's important to Norway as well because it is the oldest frame building in Norway. But Valdres itself is filled with symbols and culture, and the culture is lived, as you will hear. You'll see many of the dancers came back wearing symbols. Currently, I am wearing something called a lovrosa. I've had this for a while, but that translates as a barn rose. There's also one on the barn in our house. You'll also see one on the peak of the porch roof at my mom's. And that is their hearts, and they make the form of a rose. And that, some farmer just decided that it was beautiful, and it became the symbol of Valdres Farms to have a lovrosa on their barn. There are other symbols, many of which we put on our skinnfelt. You'll hear more about that later. This is called the Valdres Hjerte, the Valdres Heart, and that is the symbol of the province itself. It's in jewelry, it's on the road signs, and you can see there are dragons. If you look up close, there are dragons in it that are very similar to the kinds of carvings that you'll see on acanthus type carving and other types of carving that date back to Viking times and to the Middle Ages, and you'll see them on the style of churches too, which of course predate the Christian era. But Valdres is a place where history is lived and kept alive, and that was one reason I wanted the dancers to go there. A moment that I think was particularly fun was, I don't know if we've seen this shot yet, but I think we have. of Aiden. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that. Oh, there it is. So Aiden is standing next to a ferry boat. That happens to be the first ferry boat that crossed the Strande Fjord, which is the fjord that our hotel was on. And I just thought, how cool was that? So, you know, here's our island with our ferry boats and Aiden's history and legacy as being part of a ferry boat family standing next to the first ferry boat to cross the Strande Fjord in Norway. And we found ourselves with all kinds of connections like that. The Hagens were invited to coffee at a relative's home 2 doors away from our hotel. What? How does that happen? Willie Engelson made it happen. And then our family also helped with that. But we found lots and lots of connections between the island, whether they were actual blood connections, some were, but more were connections about the how and the community and the way we do things and the way we relate to each other. And you'll hear more about that now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Britta Sevchek, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about the dance and music culture of Norway. On our first full day in Norway, we spent it celebrating Midsommar. We took a bus through the mountains to reach a farm where dancers were practicing for the Landskapsleiken festival that we would watch later on in the week. We watched them practice their dances, and a few of us were brave enough to join in. Later that evening, we performed Butterfly Shottas and the Snus Polka for our hosts. We watched dance and music demonstrations at the Valdres Folk Museum. We attended a dance workshop led by Frikar, a dance company known throughout Norway for their extreme tricks and amazing choreography. The workshop lasted 3 hours and we learned new dances such as the Halling and Springa. The next evening was my favorite night of the entire trip. We invited all the dancers we had met throughout the week to meet at our hotel for a s'more celebration. The evening was filled with us teaching young adults from Norway our fest dances. It was so cool seeing all of these individuals born in a place with such a rich culture of folk dancing be interested in our dances. Here is our fiddler, Pauline Taylor, sharing tunes and techniques with their fiddler for the Landskapsleiken dance group. We ended our s'more celebration by learning a new schottish from a local Norwegian celebrity, Eilif Noraker, and later on in the evening, you'll get to see some of us perform it. Later in the week, we traveled to Gol for the annual Landskapsleiken Festival of Folk Music and Dance. We heard a performance on an instrument similar to the accordion called the torader. This is the Hardanger fiddle, which differs from the common fiddle in that it has 8 strings. 4 of them are played with a bow and 4 sit behind the first 4, called sympathetic strings, which are activated by the vibration of the first 4 strings. The langeleik is another string instrument played by laying it flat on the table in front of you and strumming it with a pick and pressing buttons to get chords. Both of these instruments have music that is taught by ear and memorized. The music has been handed down for generations this way, without the music in formally notated written form. Yet, even with it being passed down only by ear, young girls such as this quartet compete at the Landskapsleiken Festival, and they carry on this folk music tradition. Now, Audrey will share about our Fiber Arts Workshop.
One of the similarities between island culture and Valdres is the affinity for arts and fine craft. We spent a day at Hogva Silvertree, which is essentially the Valdres version of our Sievers School of Fine Arts. We went to the silversmith, and I loved seeing all the handmade goods and the sheep. Hodva translates into Hodva family, silver and wood. This is a working farm where they grow all their own vegetables for the year and raise sheep for meat as well as wool for craft. The original family lives there with the matriarch pictured on the left, as well as the full-time silversmith on the right, who makes traditional Bunad jewelry. The shop also features poetry and wood carving. After the farm tour, they taught us how to make shinben by stitching together 2 pieces of sheepskin. We each made one and got to bring it home with us. Some of us were experienced at sewing, and some of us only had this for our first time ever holding a needle. Then we were allowed to stamp the leather side with hand-carved wooden stamps for several intricate designs. Behind us, the dome-shaped mountain that is right there, that gives Rundevellen its name. And we climbed that peak just the night before. There are some of my favorite wildflowers. And then at the festival, I want to take a moment to reflect on the depth of importance and tradition to the Norwegian culture. People wear bunads to all sorts of events, and there are so many dance groups and so many people learn the ancient instruments. Tradition is just lived and breathed there. I had the time of my life, and I'll never forget it.
Hello, my name is Corey Sebchak. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the Norwegian bunad. So my daughter Britta and I were hoping to purchase our very own bunads while visiting Norway. One aspect we didn't realize was that there are more than 450 different bunad styles unique to each region in Norway. Muted colors from plant-based dyes are common in central Norway, where beaded patterns are more common along coastal Norway villages and ports for overseas trading. While visiting a dressmaking shop, called Husfleten in Fagernes, Norway, we discovered that the shop only makes bunads specific to the Valdres region. And this is not the region from which our family immigrated. We were also told that not all bunads are made in Norway. Many bunads are now being created in Estonia, China, and Thailand. It is becoming more difficult to find people who know how to embroider the intricate patterns. Bunads are still worn frequently in Norway for special occasions, like weddings and confirmations and around Christmas time, with 70% of women and 20% of men owning their own bunads. Bunads are frequently sewn and embroidered by a family member and passed down. We are so lucky to have Barbara Cano here on the island with such a talent for creating and altering our collection of bunads. In the third section of tonight's program, we'd like to share our impressions. First, Aidan Carrington will share a summary of the trip that Zach Bucks wrote.
I'm back, everybody. But Zach wishes he could have been here tonight, but he's not feeling well. But he wanted to share this with everyone. I really enjoyed the trip, hanging out with my friends and meeting new people. It was a really great opportunity to learn about Norwegian culture, history, and dance. My favorite things on the trip were hiking, learning their dances, and trying their food. Something that I find interesting is how similar Fagernes and the island are. Just like at Lisco. Another similarity, even though we don't have mountains here on the island, many of the landscapes there look very familiar to what you might see on the island. We even thought some of the locals could be easily mistaken for islanders. My Norway trip was fantastic and enjoyable, Zach writes. I was glad that I got to be a part of it. I think we should make this a 4-year planned trip so other people can get the experience that I had. If you haven't gone to Norway, I suggest you go to Norway. Next up, Maya's going to share some quotations from our trip.
Next
how they wanted to learn our dances too. Sydney. I noticed how much they do outdoors and how careful they are with the environment. The lights in the room go off whenever we leave. They limit their use of AC. They have public transit. They walk and bike everywhere. Mia. It took time to get used to the idea that it's only dark at night for 4 hours, from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. It struck me that they were so open and welcoming. They came over and asked me to dance. I'm thankful for how much I wasn't on my phone. I was doing so many other things. Social media is not such a huge part of Norwegian life. They seem more connected to each other and being in nature than on their phones. Lily. I learned a lot about my family, not just my mom's side, but my dad's side too. Also Lily. Today was my favorite so far. We went to free card dance for 3 hours and learned a lot of parts to new dances. We had people from the free card dance company teach us. They were so kind, funny, joyful, and spunky. They demonstrated some of the dances they would be doing for the competition. It was amazing. They were doing all sorts of flips and turns and jumps. It was crazy. We took a 4-hour hike to the top of Rundemeln. It was the most beautiful hike I've ever taken. Words can't describe how magnificent it was. We all returned to the hotel thoroughly exhausted, but feeling very happy, alive, and satisfied. It was an awesome day. Genevieve. Dinner was amazing. I now understand the hype about jam with meatballs. Morgan. I was awake for our midnight ferry ride. How cool, right? Now I'm safe at home and ready to get back to work tomorrow. Overall, this trip was incredible, and I couldn't be more grateful for the opportunity. Also, Morgan. And next.
I'm Clara, and I will be sharing a letter I wrote to the island. Dear Islanders, being able to visit Norway, where my ancestors came from, was a surreal and amazing experience. The island holds a special place in all of our hearts, and I think a big reason for this is because of the culture and customs that the people of Scandinavia brought here when choosing it as a place to settle. This was something I realized on the trip. My biggest takeaways from the trip centered around continuing to keep the Scandinavian culture on the island and bringing new traditions that we experienced throughout our trip. Every person we met showed us kindness and hospitality while on our travels. This is similar to the island. In Norway, we met many people who we saw various times throughout the trip. Every time we met a new group of people, we were greeted with kindness and generosity. We were taught new dances, given large amounts of food, and taught about Norwegian customs. The people of Norway opened up their homes for us to visit, which reminds me of how islanders often invite others to a meal at their table. The Norwegian custom of hospitality is something that the island should strive to keep. One of our friends we met, Eilif, told Kari that he couldn't believe that in meeting us, he was with so many new people who loved folk dance as much as he did. This reminded me of dancing in our own Scandinavian fest. The island dancers share a passion and joy in Scandinavian dancing, just like Eilif enjoys doing with his dance group. We could tell how happy he was to be with our island clan and share his joy of dancing with us. The fest truly does build friendships and is where many of us built relationships with our best friends today. Through dance, the group that traveled to Norway now has many new friendships. In a world that seems increasingly divided, dancing is a universal language that can unite hearts, even across language barriers. At the Landskapsleiken Festival, an annual event with competition in Norwegian folk dance and music that takes place in Gol, Norway, this quote resonated with me. When you play music or dance together, you see each other. While watching dancers in Norway, whether social dance or competition, you could tell how much the dancers truly knew each other and had strong social bonds. When watching the fest this year, I encourage you to notice the relationships that our dancers have with each other and how dance can bring people together. We would like to dance for you a schottish that Eilif taught us.
I'll just say that this was really one of my favorite parts of the trip, just learning a new dance kind of spontaneously. We were just enjoying the s'mores party, and I said, hey, I've got this one I can teach you guys, and it just kind of came about. And so what you'll see is not a perfect practiced performance here, but what you'll see is just the joy of learning something new and having fun making new friends while doing it. Part of the trip for me was the chance to visit the Nobel Peace Center in Oslo. This has been somewhat of a bucket list item for me for some time after reading the biography of Rigoberta Menchú, who's a South American woman who is honored there. So when I learned that we had only a 10-minute walk away from the Peace Center, I knew immediately how I was going to spend my free time in Oslo. Arnold Nobel was a chemist and an engineer who established the Nobel Foundation to grant awards to the person who has conferred the greatest benefit to humankind in diplomatic endeavors of peacemaking. This world map invites visitors to stamp the words "Imagine Peace" in the location where you came from. So of course, we put our stamp over Washington Island. And this quote caught my eye because it mentioned dance. Diplomacy is listening to one another and opening up dialogue so that you can disagree without disrespecting your partner. It is an art, a dance. Narges Mohammadi is an Iranian Nobel Peace Laureate, and she writes, "Music is universal. Dance is universal. You can speak the language of feelings without using words. I am a woman who loves life, the beauty of joy, dance, music, and happiness." It seems to me that community dancing is a necessary glue among human beings. We can disagree off the dance floor, but on the dance floor, we remember we are friends and we belong to one another. In the late spring, the island can be awash in forget-me-nots, and I really love walking along Green Bay Road where the flowers seem to make a blue carpet on the forest floor. And I think that's why this forget-me-not sculpture captured my heart. The artist says, "The forget-me-not is a flower that symbolizes eternal love and loyalty. Forget-me-nots are small and it can be easily overlooked, but at the Peace Center, the flowers are impossible to ignore. The flowers serve as a beautiful reminder of the significance of the Nobel Peace Prize. They urge us to remember those who risk everything for a more peaceful world." Dancing at the Roots and Routes Somali Heritage event on July 20th was another expression of our common humanity. 8 of our dancers attended this joyful day and represented our Norwegian heritage. This event was organized in Barron County, where there's a community of 600 people who have fled the Somali War over the past 20 years. The event compared the immigration experience of our Norwegian ancestors in the 1800s with our Somali neighbors' experience in the 2000s. We ate lefse and their equivalent, malawa. We learned their dances and taught them ours. And now, this is the portion of the program where we invite all of you to share with us in the program. We would like to invite everyone to join in singing "This Is My Song." Next slide for the words. And one more. There we go.
So this is to the tune Finlandia, so it's probably pretty familiar to a lot of people.
We know there are so many people from the Washington community at large who supported the dancers to take this trip in honor of the 75th anniversary of the Scandinavian Fest. We who traveled want you all to know how incredibly grateful we are, and that we will use the experiences we gained on the trip to continue to enrich the island's heritage for the next 75 years. We have some acknowledgements. Of course, the dance director, travel agent, and interpreter, and inspiration for the trip, Kari Gordon. come together, to our amazing funding groups, to our community for odd jobs, love, and support, to the Island Fair Line for the late night ferry return, and for the beautiful handmade ornaments that we took as gifts to all of our hosts. And there are certainly many more that I have failed to mention. But most of all, again, a big thank you to Centauc Card. And to our new friends in Foggerness, to Centauc, 1,000 thanks. This in Norwegian says, it is the end and the beginning. So thank you all for attending tonight. Pauline is going to play a little postlude, and you are welcome to go, but we also have, after the credits roll, a few outtakes and bloopers and silly shots that you're welcome to enjoy as we leave. Thank you all so much for attending tonight, and thank you all for your support.